Okay, so I want you to imagine the scene for a second. It's March 5th, 2013. We're in Caracas, Venezuela.
And there's this heavy, almost suffocating silence falling over the city.
Yeah, it's not just quiet. It's the sound of a vacuum opening up right in the center of the country.
It was a seismic schist.
Mm-hmm.
Hugo Chavez, the comandante, had just died.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand, for over a decade, Chavez wasn't just a president.
No, not at all.
He was the sun around which the entire Venezuelan universe revolved.
Yeah.
His personality was so massive, it basically eclipsed the institutions of the state.
So the nation is weeping. You've got people flooding the streets in red shirts. And suddenly there's this massive power gap. And stepping into that spotlight isn't some decorated general.
Right. It's not a Harvard-educated technocrat or a seasoned diplomat from a wealthy family.
No, it's a tall, hulking man with a thick mustache.
And he's holding up a miniature version of the Venezuelan Constitution like it's some kind of holy relic.
It's Nicolas Maduro, and here's the detail, the one detail that the entire world just latched onto immediately. He's a former bus driver.
And at that moment, if you looked at the diplomatic cables, the intelligence reports, even if you just asked people in Caracas, the consensus was almost unanimous.
They all thought the same thing.
Yeah. This guy is a placeholder. He's a shadow. And shadows, they disappear when the sun goes down. He was supposed to be gone in 6 months, tops.
But they were all wrong. I mean, the intelligence agencies, the opposition, foreign government, they were all spectacularly wrong.
He didn't just stay for 6 months. He's basically defined the next decade of Latin American history.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We've gone through a stack of articles, biographies, and geopolitical analyses to figure this out.
Right.
We want to answer a very specific question. How did a man, everyone underestimated, a man who was never supposed to be the main character, end up navigating the total economic collapse of his nation, defying global superpowers, and becoming one of the most entrenched figures of the 21st century?
It really is a study in survival. It's about how someone takes a hand of cards that seems absolutely unplayable. You've got economic ruin, sanctions, assassination attempts, and just manages to stay at the table.
When everyone else is folded. So let's get into it. This is our deep dive into the driver's seat, the improbable rise and survival of Nicolás Maduro.
And I think to really understand how he survived the presidency, you have to look at the skills he picked up way before he ever set foot in the Miraflores Palace.
You have to go back to the streets.
Exactly. We need to look at the origins. So Nicolás Maduro Moros was born on November 23, 1962. He grew up in El Valle, which is a working-class neighborhood in Caracas.
And this is important, right? Because in Latin American politics, pedigree, it so often matters. He didn't have it.
He wasn't part of the Bolivarianism, the new elite, or the old money. Not at all. His father was a dedicated union leader.
So young Nicholas is, breathing in leftist politics at the dinner table.
It's in his DNA from the very beginning. But, and here's where the source material highlights something really, I think, humanizing. He didn't go the route you might expect.
He didn't run off to a university to study political science or law?
No, the sources call him a creature of the streets, or the barrios.
But here is my absolute favorite detail from the research notes. Before the suits, before all the anti-imperialist speeches, Nicolás Maduro was a rocker.
It creates a kind of cognitive dissonance, doesn't it?
Completely. In his youth, he had long hair, he was part of the counterculture, and he played the bass guitar in a rock band.
Called Enigma.
Enigma. It's almost too perfect considering how hard he's been for the West to figure out later on.
I mean, just picture it. The guy who is now this authoritarian leader jamming out on a bass guitar in a garage somewhere in the 70s.
It reminds you that before the heavy politics took over, there was just a guy trying to find his rhythm.
But that rhythm shifted pretty quickly from music to social activism. And this leads us to the most famous part of his resume, the part his detractors used to mock him.
Calling him the bus driver.
Exactly. But it's the part that actually explains a lot of his success.
He joined the Caracas Metrobus system. Now, it's easy to be classist about this and say, oh, it's just a blue-collar job, he's unskilled.
Right.
But the analysis here suggests that for Maduro, this was his political laboratory. So why do they call it that?
Well, think about what a union leader actually does. He didn't just drive the bus. He founded the first union for the metro workers. That role is a masterclass in political mechanics.
Okay.
You have to learn the art of negotiation, sitting across from people who have way more power than you and still getting what you want. You have to understand the power of the strike.
Knowing when to press, when to back off.
Exactly. When to shut things down and when to ease up. It's crowd control, really. And it's emotional intelligence. You have to develop the charisma to lead thousands of laborers who are angry or tired or hungry.
So while other future leaders were writing thesis papers on governance theory, Maduro was on the ground floor, practicing the actual mechanics of power and leverage.
He entered the game with a PhD in street-level friction. And that skill set becomes absolutely crucial when he meets the man who would change his life forever, Hugo Chavez.
The turning point is 1992. Chavez is a young paratrooper. He leads this violent coup attempt against the government.
And it fails. Chavez goes to prison.
And usually that's where the story ends for the entourage, right? The leader goes to jail, the followers scatter.
They save themselves. But this is where Maduro distinguishes himself.
Right.
He and his future wife, Celia Flores, and we should pause on her for a second because she is a formidable lawyer, a massive power broker in her own right. They didn't scatter.
They became Chavez's most loyal footmen while he was locked up.
But the sources use a specific term for Maduro here, the bridge.
That makes perfect sense because you have Chavez, who represents this military-led movement, Chavismo, which is all about discipline and hierarchy. And then you have the civilian labor movements, the unions, and Maduro is the guy connecting them.
He's the translator. The military guys didn't trust the civilians, and the civilians were wary of the soldiers. Maduro could speak both languages.
So when Chavez is released and eventually wins the presidency in 1998, Maduro is ready for the big leagues.
Because he's one of the few people who can walk in both worlds.
And his rise is fast. I mean, it's meteoric.
Incredibly fast. He goes from being that union organizer to a legislator, then president of the National Assembly, and finally he lands the role of foreign minister.
Which, again, on paper seems like a mismatch. A bus driver with no international relations degree becoming the top diplomat.
But the text says he was actually nicknamed the top diplomat for a reason. He was effective.
How so?
He was the counterbalance. Chavez was the fire. He'd go to the UN, smell sulfur, call George Bush the devil.
He was the showman.
Absolutely. Maduro was the guy in the back room. The calm voice smoothing things over, building the actual alliances with Russia, with Iran, with Cuba. He was the good cop to Chavez's bad cop.
And he never tried to outshine the master. He had discipline.
Total discipline. But then tragedy hits. Chavez's health deteriorates from cancer. And the question of succession isn't just political. It's a matter of life and death for their whole revolution.
This brings us to one of the most dramatic political endorsements in modern history, the full moon speech.
It feels like something out of Shakespeare.
It really does.
It was unprecedented.
Yeah.
Chavez, looking frail, looks directly into the camera in his final televised address. He knows he might not come back from surgery in Cuba.
And he tells the Venezuelan people, if anything happens to him, there is only one choice.
I have the quote right here. He said, "My firm opinion, as clear as the full moon, irrevocable, absolute, and total, is that you elect Nicolás Maduro as president."
Absolute and total. He left zero wiggle room.
He bypassed his own brother. He bypassed senior generals who'd been with him from the start. He chose the loyalist. And with those words, the bus driver was anointed.
But, and this is the biggest but of the whole story, the kingdom he inherited wasn't exactly a well-oiled machine, was it?
No. The machine was already smoking. And this is where the underdog story turns into a survival thriller.
Okay, so 2013. Maduro takes over. He wins the election, but it's razor thin.
Less than 2%.
Yeah.
And immediately, there are accusations of fraud. So he starts on really shaky ground.
But he also has two massive deficits that Chavez never had. First, he just lacks the charisma.
Right. Chavez could get on TV for 8 hours, tell jokes, sing songs, and the people loved him. Maduro, he just doesn't have that magnetic pull.
And the second problem?
The cash ran out. Chavez ruled during a historic oil boom. He could mask incompetence or corruption by just throwing money at problems. When Maduro took the wheel, the global price of oil,
which is Venezuela's entire lifeblood,
95% of their export revenue, it just collapsed.
It was the perfect
It
storm.
was an economic apocalypse, and what followed was just tragic. We saw hyperinflation.
I want to pause on that word, hyperinflation, because we hear it a lot, but what did it actually look like on the ground?
It's a death spiral. The government runs out of real money, so they print more local currency to pay bills. But because there are no goods to buy, prices just skyrocket.
So you'd need a backpack full of cash just to buy a chicken.
Exactly. Prices were doubling every few weeks. And this led to the empty shelves, the medicine shortages.
And the exodus.
The exodus. This is crucial context. Millions of Venezuelans, some estimates say nearly 8 million by now, just started walking across borders into Colombia and Brazil to survive.
So put yourself in his shoes for a minute. You have no military background. You have the charisma of a bureaucrat compared to your godlike predecessor. The economy has evaporated.
And half the world is calling you a fraud.
Right. By all the laws of political gravity, Maduro should have fallen within a year.
And that is the core paradox of this whole deep dive. How on earth did he survive?
The source material suggests he leaned into the crisis. What does that mean, practically?
It means instead of trying to fix the democracy or, appease the opposition, he decided to break the system to fit his needs. He consolidated power ruthlessly.
Give me an example of that, of breaking the system.
The Constituent Assembly in 2017 is the prime example.
Oh.
The opposition had won control of the National Assembly, the actual parliament, in a landslide
So they were going to block him.
at every turn. So what does Maduro do? He doesn't negotiate. He claims the Constitution needs rewriting, and he creates a new legislative body, the Constituent Assembly.
He just invented a new parliament to bypass the one he lost.
That's it. A parallel legislature filled entirely with his loyalists. And because it was technically writing a new constitution, he argued it had supreme power over everything else.
Wow.
It rendered the elected opposition irrelevant overnight.
That's incredibly audacious. It's like losing a soccer match and then declaring that you've invented a new sport where you're the winner.
And it worked because he had the military. That was his other survival tactic. He purged anyone who looked shaky and promoted loyalists.
And gave him a piece of the pie.
A big piece. He gave the military control over key economic sectors, food distribution, oil services. He made sure the generals were getting rich, so they had a vested interest in keeping him in power.
But it wasn't just political maneuvering, it was physical survival too. We have to talk about 2018, the drone attack.
That was such a surreal moment. It was broadcast live. Maduro speaking at a military parade. Suddenly you see him look up. His wife looks up.
And the soldiers just start scattering.
Drones laden with explosives had detonated near the presidential stand. It looked like something out of a cyberpunk novel.
It really did.
But it just underscores the very real physical danger he was in. And yet, look at how he reacted. He didn't hide. He used it to justify a massive crackdown on the opposition.
Claiming it was a foreign plot. And then came 2019, the year of the showdown.
The biggest challenge to his rule, by far. The United States and dozens of other nations decided they'd had enough. They recognized the opposition leader, Juan Guaido, as the legitimate president.
This was the maximum pressure campaign.
Exactly. The U.S. slammed massive sanctions on the oil industry. The goal was to starve the government of cash and trigger a military coup.
The world was watching, literally counting the days. Everyone expected Maduro to flee.
The rumor mill was saying he had a plane on the tarmac, ready to go to Cuba or Russia.
But the plane never took off. He stayed right there in the Miraflores Palace.
He stayed, and he pivoted. This is where those diplomat skills from his early years came back into play. The West cut him off. Fine.
He turned to Russia, China, and Iran.
Found ways to sell oil on the black market to keep the lights on. And he did something else that seems totally contradictory to the whole socialist revolution.
This part really surprised me. You're talking about the dollarization.
Yes. The man who built his entire brand on fighting Yankee imperialism allowed the U.S. dollar to become the main currency in Venezuela.
How does that even work?
It's the ultimate pragmatism, or hypocrisy, depending on your view. The country was drowning in worthless bolivars. So Maduro just quietly stopped enforcing the currency controls. He let the dollar flow.
So the socialist paradise is now running on capitalism.
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah.
And it stabilized the economy. Chalks filled up again because merchants could import goods and sell them for hard currency.
But it created this brutal inequality, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you have dollars, you eat well. If you don't, you starve. But for Maduro, it stopped the total collapse. It bought him quiet.
It seems like he's always willing to sacrifice the ideology to save the regime.
He played the long game. While the U.S. and the opposition were betting on a quick sprint to knock him out, Maduro was running a marathon. The opposition fractured, international attention drifted, and Maduro just waited them out.
So here we are today. He is still there. He's the master of his domain. But the cost has been just staggering.
And that's the duality we have to look at. We can't paint this with a single brush. On one side, you have his core supporters. To them, he is the conductor of victories.
That's a hell of a title.
It is. They see him as the man who stood up to the empire, the man who kept the Chavista revolution alive when the CIA, the EU, and the global media were all trying to crush it.
So for them, the fact that he's still standing is a victory in itself.
A victory for sovereignty. But then there's view B,
The critics.
the critics, the international human rights organizations, and the nearly 8 million people who walked out of the country. To them, he's a dictator.
Plain and simple.
He's the man who oversaw the destruction of democracy and the greatest humanitarian crisis in the history of the Western Hemisphere.
It's just such a massive contradiction. He preaches socialism from a position of absolute power. He speaks constantly of the pueblo, the people, while millions of those very people are living in exile.
And that is the enigma of Nicolás Maduro. He seems to thrive in chaos. It's like he feeds on the pressure. If you push him, he doesn't break, he just digs in deeper.
He's proven to be a master of political survival.
Perhaps the most underestimated operator of our time.
And it brings us right back to that image in the intro, the bus driver.
That metaphor is just so powerful, isn't it? Think about it. Everyone thought he was just keeping the seat warm. But he didn't just drive the bus. When the engine exploded, he got out and pushed it.
When the passengers revolted, he locked the doors.
He made the journey brutal, but he refused to let anyone else take the wheel.
He is still in the driver's seat.
He is. And the road he's driving on is uncertain. The legacy is still being written. Is he the guardian of national sovereignty who saved his movement? Or is he the architect of a nation's ruin?
It's a question that doesn't have an easy answer yet.
No, it doesn't. But one thing is certain. The man who once played bass in a garage band has driven his country right into the heart of modern history.
And the world is still watching to see where that road ends. Well, that is a lot to process. From the bass guitar to the presidential palace to the center of a global geopolitical storm.
It's just a reminder that history isn't always made by the people you expect.
That is all we have time for on this deep dive. A fascinating look at survival, power, and the cost of staying on top.
It's been a pleasure unpacking it.
As always, thank you for listening. And here's a final thought to take with you. Maduro has proven he can survive the crash, but can a system built entirely on defense ever switch back to growth? It's one thing to stay in the driver's seat. It's another thing to get the car moving forward again. Something to think about. Until next time.